Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and we're going to be looking at strange but true creepy stories. Maybe tall tales, anything we can look at.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel.
There, I got that done. You know I'm streaming. Well, you know that's done. Now, as I said, but we're going to be looking at creepy but strange, amazing tales and weird things tonight and having some fun. But let me go off and show some artwork off for my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs, first. Okay? Here we go. Here is my extreme 90s cover. This cover I did to harken back to the comic books of the 90s. It looks pretty good. The name of my graphic novel is Scumdogs. It's not up on Indiegogo yet, folks, because I'm still working on the book, but when it's done, it'll be up on there. Now, the Scumdogs themselves, the title characters, they're supervillains out to take over the world. It's a parody book and stuff. I parody cartoons we all know and love and grew up with. You know, cartoons we all really want to see again, but no one can actually make anymore. Now, my two main characters on this cover, as you see here, are Death Mug and Buick Starpoon. You see a bunch of characters, but Death Mug is the purple guy with the metal mask, and Buick Starpoon is the guy with the pink pompadour hair. Now, Death Mug is an overblown, arrogant guy who's a dictator who wants to rule the world. See, in this future, there was such a thing known as the Scumdog Sports. It's basically sporting events held with superhuman monsters as the athletes. See, they're called scum dogs because they trade in their humanity for money. See, the competing these events, they transform themselves into monsters, either through science or through some other means, and stuff like that. Now, as I said, Death Mug is an overblown, arrogant dictator who wants to rule the world. See, that's because he used to be a pro athlete. All the Scumdogs were former pro athletes, but they were banned from sports. So they decided to go and take over the world. They're opposed by the space forces who are dedicated to saving humanity. But the thing is, they're also not exactly the best guys around. I mean, Buick Starpoon is an arrogant military guy with an ego as big as his head. Well, his head's actually pretty huge as it is, but his ego is even bigger. Okay, and he instantly took a dislike to Death Mug, and when they met and ended up basically being rivals and trying to beat each other down. Mainly because he's not exactly Buick Starpoon is doing it for to be a hero, but more because he can't stand anyone else being as arrogant as he is. Now, Death Mug has attributes from various villains from 80s cartoons, namely from G.I. Joe. Mainly like Cobra Commander and Serpentor from G.I. Joe's, from Cobra and stuff. He's got a metal silver mask like Cobra Commander, and he's got gold on him like Serpentor. And of course, he's purple like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You see it all there. While Buick Starpoon is basically a G.I. Joe parody, mostly of Duke from G.I. Joe, which means he has a military specialty along with every other member of his team in the Space Forces. Buick Starpoon is also a parody of the space hero kind of character. Notice his uniform, how it looks like something from that you'd see on a space opera. Anyone with a similar uniform to him is part of his team in the Space Forces. Buick Starpoon's military specialty is that he's a captain in the Space Forces, and you get the idea there. Well, the other member of his team on this cover you can see are this guy with a mohawk over here, whose name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's an army guy. Before he joined up with Buick Starpoon in the Space Forces, he was part of the army. While this bald guy with a gun down here, his name is Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine, just another Marine. While this guy back here in the red uniform driving that vehicle, firing off his weapons, his name is Blast Tank. His military specialty is that he's a heavy vehicle specialist, a tanker. Get the joke? Get it? He's a tanker. Now, this cover is one of 3 different variant covers you'll be able to back when my Indiegogo goes live. It's not live yet, folks. I'm still working on the book, but it looks pretty good. Now we'll look at Girl Friday. Girl Friday is the second command to the Wild Rangers. That's the name of Buick Starpoon's team in the Space Forces. Girl Friday was assigned to the Wild Rangers because while the Wild Rangers fight the Scumdogs and save the universe, they're just highly destructive idiots whose idea of saving a town is burning it down to keep the Scumdogs from claiming it. Or rather, taking it over. So they head off any kind of, criticism from the public for the way the Wild Rangers were were handling the scum dogs, they assigned Girl Friday to basically babysit the team. And she hates Buick Starpoon. She hates him, and she thinks her career in the military is over because she's basically now just a babysitter. You can read more about her and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, folks, hit that like button for me. It helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my content. Hit that bell as well, and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my videos. And please go share this video on Twitter and Facebook. Here now we're going to look at Death Mug's henchmen, because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain of the cartoon would have henchmen, and they'd be total idiots. These are my idiots. Yeah, these are my idiots. The blue guy with the top hat is Murder Mouth, and the pink guy down here is Sloppy. There are a couple of idiots that can't do anything right, and they're going to be fun as hell when you read about them. Here we have Hair Metal Doctor. Hair Metal Doctor is a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe. And I should also say Murder Mouth and Sloppy are going to be a parody of every henchman from an 80s cartoon. But here we have Hair Metal Doctor, who is a parody of Dr. Mindbender from G.I. Joe, a mad scientist. But my mad scientist here has been crossed over with a hair metal musician. He thinks of all the mad gadgets and machines the scumdogs use to try and take over the world. And here we have Miss Breasty Melons, who's basically a parody of the Baroness from G.I. Joe. But unlike the Baroness, she's a party girl who wants to have fun. She only became a villain because she wants to have fun. Now we looked at this. The artwork looks pretty good. You looked at my characters. So, yeah. The Hair Metal Doctor pinup and the Miss Breasty Melons pinup will be included with other pinups in my graphic novel. But these pinups will also be brought to you on T-shirts from Crypto Fashion as soon as I'm able to make them, okay? So I'll exit out of these, and we'll look at some creepy but strange stories tonight. Have some fun. Hit that like button for me if you have not yet. All right, let me see here what to look at first. Real cryptid reports, eyewitness experience, paranormal investigations. Could look at these. First, right crawler humanoid fighting couple Wisconsin. All right. Here's the story. A white crawler in Wisconsin, huh? Okay. A couple arrives home at night and begins to unpack their car. As they are doing so, the woman observes a white crawler humanoid and alerts her boyfriend. They then run to safety inside the house. I recently came across the following account. My boyfriend and I used to live with his mom in a house in the city of Waupun, Wisconsin. The house was located off a certain highway. That takes you, it brings you out of the city. There are literally no lights, so it's quite dark at night. Takes you out of the city, huh? He and I were driving home. Well, there are literally no lights, so it's quite dark at night. He and I were literally driving home from my parents' house. When we got home, while we're unpacking the car, it's kind of eerie. My boyfriend isn't bothered, though I start to hear some really weird noises, not like the ordinary woodsy creatures of the night. Kind of shrugged it off. My boyfriend is carrying stuff inside from the car, and I'm in the car just getting our dog ready. That's when I see this hairless, I guess, white humanoid creature, but it's on its all fours. I don't know if there were more. One of them, it moved very quick, really quick. I told my boyfriend, hey, do you see those things? And he says, no, what things? I'm looking right at the thing, and I loudly, that right there. He still doesn't see it. Then right as my boyfriend turns to the tall grass area, we hear this screaming sound like a rabbit being killed or by something. Well, we book in it, run inside. When we get in, right in front of the front door, if we walk to the opposite side of the house, there's a porch with a glass pine window. We both notice it. That thing is on our wooden porch looking in through the glass door. We run to his mom's room and tell her what's going on. She's versed in Native American culture, so she does his whole saga of the house thing that seemed to make it disappear for the time being. So we kind of just stayed most of the night, freaked out. We eventually fell asleep. We wake up late morning, so we're going back to the car. There are these handprints all over the windows. And after that night, never came back. Would like to know what you think it was. I had no hair, very white humanoid on all fours. Could it have been a Wendigo? Maybe. Experience, thanks to crawler humanoids, are a Wendigo. Even though some of the characteristics are said to be similar, a Wendigo is an evil possession energy that is believed to transform a human into a murderous cannibal fiend. We are still unsure what these crawlers or what humanoids really are. We can only speculate. There was a story right there, right off the bat. We looked at that. Now, maybe we'll go over here and look at various creatures over here. Strangely hairy humanoids appear in photos from Brazil. Winged humanoids, bizarre encounters with mysterious little humanoids of the world. So look at this, folks. Feel free to leave me a few chats, okay? I'd love to hear from you guys. If there's any stories you would like me to look up, any monsters, cryptids, anything we could look at. Hell, I should also look at some Indiegogos because I have them right here. Well, I'll take a look at this before we move on. If there are any new Indiegogos. Dame Gang has made $6,290 with 54 days left. Here's a book about giant women who kick ass. Very beautiful women as well. It's not woke at all. It looks like one hell of a great book. That's Dame Gang. Even back it for, let's take a look at how much this actually costs. Let's see. There you can see that they're big, aren't they, huh? Let's see. Dame Gang, you can back it for $25. That's a good price for this book. And it's not only that, but it's also like 90 pages. Well, 80 pages or something like that. So it's like 83 pages of stories. So you're basically getting a full series of books. A full series, a full 4-issue series. And Dame Gang, Tall Tales. Dame Gang is an original comic book about a group of, superheroes. Female superheroes who are in the world of the comic book. Dame Gang, some women grow to be around 9 feet in height, super tall and extra thick. Happens in the same way and about the same frequency as the way some people become dwarfs. This comes with some advantages, but with a lot of more disadvantages. In Dame Gang, Tall Tales, we follow all 3 of these giantess, Maven. They gain superpowers when they come in contact with an ancient artifact and try to get answers. Not bad. This book is 80+ pages with 2 covers to choose from and comes with 2 trading cards per book and the option of a poster. So you're basically getting a full story here. Dame Gang. So it looks Maven. The Dames. Yeah, this looks like a great looking book with some great looking artwork. And as I said, it's 80+ pages. Go check it out. Sheila Aliens. True, you have a typo. Yeah, about my name and stuff. They make it easier to find my my YouTube channel. Read comics; they're bad for you. The there is misspelled, so it's easier to find. Usually, it brings you right to me. I've been thinking about changing it to make it just with proper spelling and stuff like that. But what do you think? Do you think it makes my channel easier to find or not? But thank you, Sheila Aliens, for checking in. Leave a few more chats if you want me to look at anything particular. We're looking at weird stories tonight, and we're just taking a break here. Let's look at mysterious little humanoids of the world. Weird creatures we're going to be talking about tonight. Other odd things, not just aliens and stuff like that. Maybe these are aliens as well as the other creatures. But hey, let's have some fun. When we think of strange creatures, monsters, and animals and mysterious humanoids, there's a tendency to assume they are large, but in many cases, that's actually very far from the truth. Sometimes we're talking about quite small unidentified entities. With that said, here are a few examples. We'll begin with Ivan T. Sanders. Well, Ivan here, who was a highly respected monster hunter and someone who became the recipient of a number of stories of unknown small humanoids in our midst. But first, a bit of a background on Sanderson himself. At the Bigfoot portal, there's this Ivan Terrence Sanderson blazed the trail into cryptozoological investigation. Sanderson has actually originated the term cryptozoology in 1947, one of the first in the scientific community. Right? To treat Bigfoot as a serious phenomenon. He helped generate the excitement and scientific rigor that invigorates Sasquatch research today. Sanderson founded the Society for the Investigation of the Unexplained to delve into phenomenon disregarded by traditional scientists. At the Smithsonian Institute request, Sanderson and Bernard Hovelman inspect the infamous Minnesota Iceman. One fascinating report came from a woman who, well, preferred anonymity, who Sanderson only referred to as Miss VK. Her off-the-record account is, however, in no way tainted by the lack of a name. She wrote to Sanderson in 1959, "I am a housewife, but I majored in biology and attended a state university and have an MA in plain zoology. My husband is an experimental chemist, and my eldest son is a technician in the Air Force. I come from Mississippi, but we resided here in Kentucky for 10 years. Now I wonder if you have ever heard of the little red men of the Delta." What could those possibly be, huh? Nobody thought anything much of them where I was raised, except that one had better be careful of shooting one because it might be murder. Or so the sheriff might think. Anything come off of it, but I was surprised to find that the folks hereabouts know it, too, though. They took some years to talk about it to me. My husband is a New Englander, and these folks don't talk much. They, the little red men of the Delta, are said to be about the size of a 10-year-old kid and able to climb like monkeys and to live back from the bayous. They talk a lot but keep out of gunshot range and mostly go into the water. They are people, and the muskrats trappers say they often wear scaps of discarded linens, old jeans. Mac Tones had something to say about small humanoids in his 2010 book, Cryptoterrestrials. He said, "I have a reliable first-hand report of little people at large, American Northwest. My source encountered a small congregation of these beings in the wooded area, human-like in all essential respects. The beings were nevertheless small, like normal people in miniature, although the encounter was brief. My source was able to glean some independent information. The little people claim to predate North American cultures and possess their own languages and so many other accounts, meaning with UFO nuts or paranormal entities. They appeared Asian, inviting speculation they originate from a lost community." All right. Well, not all of them are Asian looking and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of reports of them looking various like anything else, a lot of different races as well. That has opted for a peripheral role, effectively hidden from everybody. In the Central American country, Belize, an enigmatic and mysterious entity known as the Din, also spelled something, depending on the particular region of Belize, a commentary on the Dunindi, surfaced in 1961. Surfaced in 61 from one of the world's most respected seekers of unknown animals, the late Ivan T. Cinders. Ivan T. here. He said dozens told me of having seen them, and these were mostly men of substance who had worked for responsible organizations like the Forestry Department and had in several cases been schooled or trained either in Europe or the United States. One, a junior forestry officer born locally, described in great detail two of these little creatures that he had suddenly noticed, quietly watching him on several occasions at the edge of the forestry reserve near the foot of the Maya Mountains. These little folk were described as being between 3 feet 6 and 4 feet 6, well proportioned, but with a very heavy shoulders and rather long arms, clothed in thick, tight, close brown hair, looking like that of a short-coated dog, having very flat yellowish faces, but head hair no longer than the body, hair except down the back of the neck and mid-back. Okay. One of the most significant accounts of the Mao people from a big game hunter, Roger Courtney. Roger, his 1940 book, Greenhorn in Africa, he related a number of the accounts of signs of old confrontations with them, or Mao men. Courtney was told they were, the little people here were also called Courtney, so that one of his interviews went on to tell how his own father was driving his sheep to pasture on the slopes of Mount Lungnut, fell into the hands of these gnomes when he went into a cave following the trail of blood left by one of his sheep that had been stolen. He was stunned from behind, and when he came from around, he found he was surrounded by strange little creatures. Courtney added that his source, related further words as follows: the Mao men were lower even than these little people of the forest, but for though they had no tails that I could see, they were as the monkeys that swing in the forest trees. Their skins were white with the whiteness of the belly of a lizard, and their bodies were covered with long black hair. Although there are vague stories suggesting that Madagascar is the domain of several distinct kinds of anomalous apes, certainly the most talked about is the Nora. Oh, this ape creature here. Like so many other such creatures in Africa, they are fairly small, falling into the long Littlefoot category. These three-toed things reportedly have their own fairly complex language and speak in a soft voice that sounds eerily like a woman's. Caves are their chief abodes, and when they are not raiding villages for food, a fascinating report in the Kalanoro of the things surfaced in 86 from, G. Herbert Smith. We next come to the forest, and from there we get endless stories of the Kalanoro, the ape creatures again. I sort of, or the little gnome creatures, or the little people. Maybe I should just call them ape creatures. Or little people. A sort of wild man of the woods, represented as very short stature, covered with hair, with flowing beard in the case of the male, and with an admirable weakness for the warmth of a fire and wetness, related that once the wind spinning in a night in the heart of the forest, he lay awake watching the fire, which he had died down to red embers, when he suddenly became aware of a figure entering to the above description, warming himself at the fire and apparently enjoying it immensely. According to the story, he put a shimmery end to the gentleman's enjoyment by stealing down his hand, grasping a stick, and sending a shower of red-hot embers onto the enclosed visitor, who immediately and most naturally fled with a shriek. Another tells how on a similar occasion the male appeared first, and after inspecting the premise, finding as well as a fire and some rice left in the pot simmering his better half, the pair squatted in front of the fire and, touching the picture of conjugal affection, proceeded to feed each other. 1938, a startling letter was published in the pages of Discovery. It was, written by British Army officer Cuthbert. According to Barragon, and 9 years earlier, 27, he had a close encounter with a pair of unknown apes and monkeys while aboard a Japanese cargo boat that was heading for Portuguese East Africa. They were apparently known locally Agawas. In Barragon's own words, we were sufficiently near the land to see a object clearly with glass of 12 magnifications. There was a sloping beach with a light brush upon which several dozen baboons were hunting for and picking up shellfish or crabs. Judged by their movements, two pure white baboons were amongst them. These are very rare. I'd heard of them previously. Then, as Barragon noticed, something amazing happened. As we watched, the two little brown men walked together out of the bush and down among the baboons. They were certainly not any known monkey, and they must have been akin to they would have disturbed the baboons. They were too far away to see in detail, but these small humans, like animals, were probably between 4 and 5 feet tall, quite upright and graceful in nature. At the time, I was thrilled, as they quite evidently, were no beast of which I had heard or read. Later, a friend and big game hunter told me he was in Portuguese, with his wife, and there other hunters saw a mother, father, and a child of apparently similar animal species walk across to the further side of a bush, coloring the natives loudly forbid him to shoot. Well, that was interesting. Interesting story there. Very bizarre, and what we were going for. Strange, but true stories. At least that's what we know about that. Let's look at some other stuff. More bizarre encounters could be pale crawler humanoids. Yeah, this is a thing. They could very well be Wendigos, because there's supposed to be a Wendigo that looks very much like a thinly thing like that, with pale skin, like a dead corpse. Ancient Mayan, right? Maybe go over here. Feel free to leave me a few more chats, folks. I'd love to hear more from you. Alleged flying humanoids over Switzerland, Russia. Truly bizarre accounts of hairy humanoids in the sewer. Tall alien humanoids have been reported in Colombia for 7 years. Let's see. Horned humanoids. Encounters with horned humanoids. Maybe I should look at that. Strange encounters with bizarre humanoids in the desert. Maybe. Let's see. WizGiz Entertainment. Hail, Sheila Aliens. Hail, WizGiz Entertainment. Thank you for leaving a chat. Anything you would like me to look at? Weird encounters with frogmen, gillmen, and other amphibious humanoids. Let's take a look at this. If I haven't read this already and stuff. According to various aquatic anomalies reported over the years, including sea monsters, lake monsters, and mermaids, certainly class L its own are the various reports, certainly are reports of strange amphibious humanoids, typically described as reptilian, frog-like, or fish-like, as if something stray of the creature from the Black Lagoon. Hey man, what's up? I'm looking at strange but true stories tonight. Weird things, tall tales, humanoids, cryptids, all those things that go bump in the night. And having some reading these stories to you. Not just seeing what you're checking out. No, just seeing, just reading some very bizarre tales. I think I've read this one already, yeah. So I might as well move on. The Night the Shape-Shifting Humanoids, Part 2. All right. Maybe go over here. Night of the Shape-Shifting Humanoids, Part 1. You could look at that. Strange elephant humanoids. Here's another chat. I'm actually needing to just listen in tonight. I'm trying to multitask. I just need to get a bunch of stuff ready to mail. That's all right, WizGiz. Feel free to listen in. I'm just glad you basically are listening in and basically having some fun. Flying saucer and flying humanoids reported in India. Maybe you should look at that. Flying humanoids, the dark side. Now, let me go back here. I was hoping there was one story I wanted to check out tonight. Let's go over here if I can find it or not. Let me see over here. This one. Go over here. Let's go up here. Damn. Mix it up again if I can just find it. Side. Let's see that. Up here. Vampires Are Us. A love affair with the immortal dark side of Margaret Adler. Let's see this. Here's another chat. But not sure if you know, but Bob Rogers' Little Miss Sunburn is a promoter of yours. She often brings you up on EVS, Jack Show streams. That's good. I think I have heard her and stuff do that and stuff. I really like Little Miss Sunshine because of how much you support CG and CG projects. I know. That is quite true. When plague is used as a weapon. All right. Now, ghosts torturing students at university. Or of the mass supernatural cyber-identified apes and monkeys, too. This over here. Japanese PM living hunted. Like that. Let's see. I looked at that one. I remember that story. Dark Rituals and the bizarre case of the Satanic Daycare Center. Could look at that, but I think I want to look at something a bit happier. When U.S. President Bigfoot, the unknown beast creature. I could look at that. Let me go over here, though, because there's a particular article I'm looking for. I might find it over here. Potential, dark side, UFO mailing question. Okay, let me go over here. I'll, where I was. But let me go to look at this one. Let's see. Let me move that out of the way. Here we go. Let's look at this. The dark side of UFO. The dark side of the UFO question. There is no doubt that the study of UFOs and strange phenomenon is a serious business, with many researchers collectively, loosely and note on any official capacity moving ideas forward through their own research claims. And, and stuff, sometimes in an entirely different field of interest. There is, however, an apparent dark side to the UFO and alien question, one that suggests such dark experiments and projects of hybridization, human experimentation, and overall program of control over every significant aspect. Yeah. Indeed, while they are all conspiracy claims and speculative theories. If there is any truth to such claims, not only does it make the UFO and alien question one that might provide us with an uncomfortable answer, but one that seeking such an answer sooner rather than later might make the difference in which path humanity ultimately goes. Yep, sooner the better if we know what's going on. For example, we might be free of the dogmatic approach of the church only to find ourselves, if we are not careful, of a similar pattern or a different guise. And in the same way, the UFO and alien question might be one that humanity has been asking itself repeatedly since the dawn of time, only a different variety of different means. To paraphrase Dr. David, such claims will either go down in the footnotes of history as once held in outlandish beliefs, or they could be some of the most important questions we as a collective could ever. Yeah. Collective? Demons, hell. We have examined previously the notion of hell and descriptions thereof possibly being a physical plane as opposed to a dark and mystical realm. While the account we looked at is to be taken with a pinch of salt, there are other claims of a similar intertwining of such religious concepts as hell with the UFO question. Indeed, among some of the new Christian, new Christians in the United States, new Christian movements in the United States, an assertion that aliens are literally demons sent to Earth to confuse and trick humans, and so do Satan's work. While theories with such heavy and dogmatic religious overtones are flat out avoided by most, it is easy to appreciate why. There is certainly an interesting link between the appearance of demons and angels, perceptions of hell and places of eternal damnation, and UFO and alien encounters, and others. Such strange phenomenon. Although perhaps not as direct or as some might think, and even in cases of apparent demonic possession, could in fact have a connection to extraterrestrials that are energy-based and so need a host or a physical body to interact with our realm of existence. The third dimension, indeed, such a notion forms the basis of David Icke's reptilian conspiracy. David. These entities exist in the lower fourth dimension, a realm invisible to us or out of our frequency of sight, and who require a physical form to exist in ours. It is perhaps worth examining the account of William C., who would enter into a correspondence with UFO researcher Arthur Timothy Green Beakley. Timothy Beakley was, Timothy here, one of the loudest and well-known voices, enjoying a link between religious writings and tales of demons and hell with UFO and alien encounters of the now and of the times going on now, of what's going on now with them and stuff. Let's see. What was interesting, perhaps what ultimately got Beakley's attention for someone he had described until that point as probably a bit of a nutter, where his claims of meeting Beelzebub and knowing the truth about God, not through any religious experience or divine intervention, through instead he claimed this meaning and information was the consequence of a UFO encounter. Beakley would tell of the encounter of an article for a conspiracy journal entitled UFOs in the Lake of Fire. According to the account, 1922, Lim was returning from a hunting in a snowstorm about 4 to 5 a.m. As he made his way through the blizzard, a strange buzzing sound hit his ears. When he looked around and surveyed his surroundings, he could see a huge spherical craft hovering over a nearby field. The spear shined so brightly it then blocked out the stars. He would also feel strangely mesmerized by the bizarre craft. He continued to watch, and after several moments, a doorway of sorts opened in the side of the spear. Inside, a gigantic creature with wings stood within. Seconds, it left the glowing craft and descended down toward the snow-covered ground below. As it did so, Lim scrambled to hide behind a nearby tree. He would recall how this menacing winged creature stood around 7 or 8 feet tall. Furthermore, it appeared demonic in its facial features and physical form. Even stranger, as the creature walked, its hooves would melt the snow beneath, leaving a very clear print. According to Lam, he remained where he was and watched as the unearthly creature walked straight through a wire fence, burning through the mesh and leaving it looking red hot. The acknowledged occult nature of UFO Most would agree that Bickley's initial evaluation of William Bickley himself, however, had seen the case preserved in the U.S. Air Force Project Blue Book files, and furthermore, his own research suggested a belief in the U.S. military of the occult nature of UFO sightings. We have also examined before the theories and claims of UFO researcher and author Nick Riffram. He claimed that certain elements of the U.S. government look to learn and then exploit for their own ends the mental capacities and powers of non-human creatures. These non-human entities, who most of us refer to as the Greys, were discovered to be highly deceptive. Ultimately, the project would conclude these entities were literally demons from hell. If there is any degree of truth of these kinds of claims, are we literally to perceive demons and hell in the traditional religious dogmatic sense? Should we perhaps see demons in this particular race of alien as indeed one and the same, but one of a malevolent entity, one that might even be behind the twisting of such legends as ancient writings in order to create such religions so they could control the masses? Indeed, with this in mind, we might even ask if God and the devil are also one and the same, a faceless control mechanism, each side of the spectrum of human nature, perhaps one backed up by the occasional sighting of these entities in their true form. Maybe it is well worth reminding ourselves of such ancient writings and commands of the gods who told the humans in their inner cycle, the priests and the ritual kings, given the divine right to rule, that they nor the people should depict or even look upon them in their true form, to ancient royal bloodlines. The basic command is within several ancient texts, and with the notion in mind of a dark controlling outside entity pulling the strings of mankind, whether arriving from another planet, another realm, or somewhere deep within the earth, we should perhaps think again, however outlandish that such legends and myths of ancient gods who walked and lived among human beings might have more dark truth to them than we think. Let us assume, even only for a moment, that these claims are accurate. What then caused this ruling alien elite to withdraw and rule from the shadows instead of walking and living among mankind? They instead installed priest kings and royal bloodlines to rule for them. Was this part of a hybridization program? Were these initial royal bloodlines in ancient Sumer? For example, these lineages can be traced back to the royal families of Europe and Great Britain, and from there to a large chunk of the presidents of the United States. First of these full alien-human hybrids, might these royal families have simply been in servitude to a higher power in residence elsewhere, a power for the sake of controlling the masses, so they would obediently worship them too? They would call God. If so, where? Where do they reside, and why did this higher power of the gods suddenly withdraw into the shadows? As an afterthought, might this also explain the extraordinary long reigns of kings, many thousands of years before the flood, and even then the more normal standard human lifetime reign of those who came after? Was this in mind then that what should we make of the claims of alien human bases deep underground in various locations around the planet? Could very well. The very strange tales, stuff like that. A mysterious world, even more mysterious, collective, in the past. More mysterious past and stuff. We are drawing a comparison to hell. What about the fact that these facilities are so far below the ground, while undoubtedly not likely to be surrounded by eternal flames and lakes of fire, certainly go a way to meeting the perceptions of hell, of traveling deep into the bowels of the earth? For example, should it happen to a person today that our 20th century mind might just be able to make some sense out of the situation, that it was some kind of facility? Though if these bases were existed thousands of years ago, what would a person many thousands of years BC, right the way up to the times of the Inquisition, make of such a location? They wouldn't likely have any comparison to offer other than the very depths of hell. Is it possible, then, that alien abductions might in fact happen since antiquity and are in part responsible for the eventual human perception of hell, perhaps as a way to rationalize a harrowing situation they don't understand and feared greatly? Yeah, back to the theories, of earlier times, perhaps these perceptions were initially fostered. So today, in modern times, we are correct to assume that these demons have been revealed as aliens. Might aliens simply be a modern perception of these entities that have similarly entwined so closely with humanity since the dawn of time? It is certainly a question worth asking, and another example of the complex and murky connections of our most mysterious world, as well as our own mysterious collective past. Remember the directions of the gods from ancient times, that nobody should look upon or depict their form. Yeah. A cosmic conflict behind the scenes? If we are speaking race of aliens who have controlled humanity from the shadows since antiquity, it would appear two races surface in the discussion. There would be the Greys and the Reptilians. This should perhaps be, as well as other creatures as well, like the Nordic. Yeah, the Nordic. Perhaps lead us to ask these two different alien races, described in a plethora of accounts, actually be the same. For example, we have examined before claims of gray alien bodies recovered from down discs with reptilian skin under a suit of armor that would take for the skin of a gray alien. And what about the apparent alien counters, these humanoids, for example? Who might these be? If we assume for a moment of the authenticity of such claims, and what of the agenda? Generally speaking, such encounters with these pale glowing humanoids are peaceful and don't involve invasive, aggressive examinations, procedures. Adventurers, these humanoids are often also issued a telepathic warning of a terrible future for humanity should we continue our current path. It is perhaps interesting that many of these humanoid sightings occurred in the 50s, early 60s. While there are sporadic accounts still today, it would appear that these humanoids were a real, genuine alien race. Present today is very greatly depleted. As widely speculative as it is, should we consider statements of such people as Lara Eisenhower taking place behind the scenes? Might these humanoids, apparently and seemingly at odds with the Greys' agenda, have been victims of this secret war? So remember, President Eisenhower alleged to have met the Greys. And legend says he also met a group of humanoid aliens around the same time. Victim of this secret war? I have my doubts. I think they're still fighting them. All right. That's very interesting. There was a very interesting story right there, folks. Now, let's see some other weird stories. Basically, his angel here analyze and discuss the mysterious substance. There's another story we could look at. Or I could go over here. So, what do you think about what we just saw, folks? Feel free to leave me a few chats if there's any strange stories you would like me to look at tonight. The most recent flying humanoids of Arizona and Massachusetts. Bizarre encounters with aquatic humanoids. Maybe go over here. 41 minutes in, not too bad. Well, maybe I should go look at this. Let's see. All right. Fairy circles. Maybe proof the world is going to survive. That is right. All right. Let's see. All right. These fairy whisperers say fairies are real, and so are they. And still fun. All right. Video shows mysterious birdman and long statue found in Irish fairy trail. Statue found in Irish fairy tale. Bizarre encounters with fairy tale creatures. All right. Let's look at this. Maybe not read all of it. It's a pretty long article. Let's have some fun. Among the many alleged monster creatures, phantoms, beasts, and assorted entities within the world, there are the weird are often these that stand out as being particularly bizarre. These are the creatures that seem to occupy their own realm of high strangeness in the dark of the fringes of the unexplained, a territory inhabited by things that they defy easy classification. Surely to be counted among the denizens of this domain are the various creatures allegedly encountered all over the world that can only be really described as being actual beings from fairy tales, as if they were steeped of the pages of and into the real world. How can this be? Are fairy tales based on these real entities? Are they the product of fanciful imaginations? I do not intend to get too far into the how or why of such things here, but what I am going to do is represent to you some damn strange cases of seemingly fairy tale beasts and beings that have wandered in from the furthest reaches of the stranges of the universe of the strange. I might have read this one before, but I might take a look at it. One of the most prolifically and reported reports of types of fairy tale creatures encountered concerns gnomes and other assorted little people. There was actually a surprisingly large number of such sightings from all over the world. In many of these cases, the term gnome isn't a nickname just given to some unidentified small humanoid, but rather it denotes a literal gnome straight out of a fairy tale, complete with caps, boots, gnomish clothes. One bizarre report comes from a witness who has just moved to with his mother when he was 17 years old. He claimed that one day he had gone to take a shower and suddenly heard the family dog frantically barking at something outside. It seemed that the dog was quite worked up and upset over something, so the witness was out of the shower to go take a look at the window, where he saw something far weirder than what he had perhaps been expecting. There in the yard, looking behind a tree, was what the witness described a diminutive man dressed completely in white and complete with a white horn-shaped hat, white pointed shoes. The odd little man apparently stared at the witness for a moment and proceeded to vanish into thin air. A few days later, the strange creature appeared again, this time outside of the witness's window. The strange tiny man smiled and disappeared again until a few days later when he appeared yet again. This time, the witness claims to have tried to communicate with it, asking it what its name was, to which it replied with its name was Sebastian Pulser. Sebastian. Things have gotten so incredibly odd that the witness, who had at this point not mentioned it to anyone else, told his mother, who perhaps not surprisingly didn't believe him. The witness then called out to the gnome by name, and it apparently appeared out of nowhere, right there and there in front of them. To cause the mother to scream out in shock, the gnome reportedly would continue to make regular appearances around the house and the yard until the family had enough and moved out. Another case of a family that was plagued by an apparent gnome and decidedly ominous overtones. This story starts with a woman known as Tammy. I think I've read this story before, but giving you an idea here, weird stories and all that. Who moved with her 3 children to a rural farmhouse near the town of Porterville, California, of the Ture River, 2004. Things get odd almost immediately. Tammy claimed that she often felt the heavy sense of being watched, at times almost feeling the gravity of eyes upon her, but there was never anyone who was around during these episodes. It did not take long for her to realize that this phenomenon happened most often and most intensely when she was near the barn, which set a secluded corner of the rather large 100-acre area. Indeed, in the coming days, the barn took on quite a sinister air, seemingly to emanate a cold chill and spooking the many animals the family owned, including dogs, a cat, chickens, turkeys, even a duck, chickens. And although they tended to wander all over the property, none of these animals would go anywhere near the barn, as if repelled by some unseen force lodged within. Indeed, she observed that none of the neighbors' animals, strays, or wildlife would go near the spooky old barn, either whenever any animals passed. So what do you think about this weird tale, huh? Another story about ultra-terrestrials, or the fair folk. That's pretty interesting to see here. None of these animals would go anywhere near the barn, as we repelled by someone observed that none of the neighbors' animals, strays, or wildlife would go near the spooky animals past the, Any animals past the barn, they would give it a wide berth. Yeah, they would not go anywhere near a wide berth, and on many occasions would act strangely in its presence, staring as if it's something were there staring back. The dogs would sometimes go nuts around the barn, barking and yelping excitedly, even though no one was there. Sometimes there could be heard strange noises coming from within the barn, which sounded like grunts, growls. To add a layer to the thickening air of foreboding, Tammy claimed she began to notice several of her animals had begun to go missing, gone without a trace, and was immediately suspected that the menacing barn has something to do with it. Tammy chalked it up to the nerves and perhaps a rats or wildlife nesting in the barn, and explained that the missing animals away as having just run off or even being killed by coyotes. But one frightening encounter would convince her that it was something more than that. One evening, Tammy returned from town with her son and parked the car, but as she exited the vehicle and went to get some groceries out of the trunk, she claimed that she saw some fleeting movement in the periphery of her vision. When she looked up, there was nothing there, and she went back to uploading the groceries, but almost immediately there was another movement, this time punctuated by an insidious laugh. She would later say, "This time I heard a very freaky, very evil-sounding chuckle. I looked in the direction of the sound, and there, standing about 50 yards from my son and I, was what I can only describe as a gnome. Standing there around 50 yards away was what she described as, Thurston was described as a humanoid creature around 3 feet tall, which sported a beard and was wearing a baggy black pants, a gold-colored shirt, and a gold-colored shirt, a red pony cap. A black pants. For a moment, it just stood there staring at her and her son with a deep, a beard, wearing a baggy gold-colored shirt, and a red pointy cap. Wow. That's interesting, huh, folks? Literally, what these people are seeing is very strange and out there. It just stood there and her son with a deep set of dead black eyes that was studying them. But then things took a turn for the sinister, Tammy would say. That thing grinned at us, and at the creepy grin spread from ear to ear. Its teeth were gross brown and pointed or jagged. It had a bulbous nose and a large, deep-set eyes, though I couldn't really tell the color of them. I never got a closer look at it, and I don't know if it was wearing those shoes or not, because at that moment I dropped my groceries, grabbed my son, and ran for the house. As soon as Tammy and her son had entered the house and slammed the door behind them, she began frantically telling her daughters what had happened. Between her deep gasps, somewhere outside, the strange little man was still cackling, and there was a movement by the window. Terrified family looked out to see what it was, and as they approached the window, they could see the top of the red pointed cap loom into view, which was especially odd considering this particular window was located around 8 feet over the ground. Tammy closed the blinds, moved her children away from the window, and waited there breathlessly until the thing finally went away. This would be the only direct sign of the evil known, but Tammy would occasionally hear that some ominous chuckling issued forth from the shunned barn, she would later say. After that night, whenever the dogs barked or howled, we were pretty sure that we knew what they were barking at. We were also pretty sure of where our missing poultry had gone. From time to time, we would hear a weird, creepy chuckle, other noises coming from from there. Interestingly, this is not the end of the story. Tammy and her family would eventually move away. A new family would house in 2010. The new family, too, immediately noticed there was something weird going on with that decrepit old barn. Evening, in the early morning hours, the couple woke to the sound raspy, gurgling singing, which chilled them to the bone. When they looked out the window, they could see standing by the small pond of the property a creature standing around 3 feet in height and wearing a maroon pants and baggy yellow shirt, brown vest, and dark waistcoat. The thing was described as having a bushy gray beard and wearing a tall, pointed reddish hat. The eyes of the being were said to be small, black, and its teeth were discolored, jagged, and sharp, and to the point of looking almost broken. The creature seemed to know it was being watched and apparently stood right back at them before snatching one of the expensive koi fish had stuck in the pond with it, jamming it into its mouth with glee. The husband allegedly shouted at it to go away, and it actually apparently gave him the finger before, going off. While laughing, when the area was examined later, a set of footprints were found that were about the size of a child's. Whatever this thing was apparently really like the pond, because it would apparently be seen there times, always in the early morning hours, around 3 a.m., eating the fish within. It also rather amusingly seemed to like playing with the garden gnome decorations. Had it been set up? Well, no. There, fed up with the strange intruder, the husband then apparently took away the lawn ornaments and fish, which caused the gnome to go to one night throw a tantrum, stomping about and shouting out in some garbled, bizarre language. Thing would skirt around the house, banging on the walls, testing the locked doors. Night before the family had had enough and moved away. Interesting thing about this case is that the family had no idea what the previous family had experienced. Similar bizarre incidents. Tales like this go further back in time. On an early account, parent gnome came from the rural town of Farmersville in the United States in 1913. The witness was a man by the name of Sylvan Lethen, claimed that while he and his two brothers were out trolling away at their cotton farm one day, their dogs began to bark and snarl off in the distance. The brothers thought nothing of it, but the barking and growling became steadily more intense and chaotic until they decided that it was probably best to see what was disturbing the animals so much when the oldest of the brothers, oldest of them, Clyde, went to have a look. He shouted to the others that he could see that the dogs were upset by a little man. When the others ran to see what he meant, they were purportedly met with a sight diminutive, humanoid around 18 inches tall with a dark green in color, wearing a large pointed hat. The thing was just standing there with its arms at its sides. Silbit would describe the scene thus. It would describe. At its sides, huh? He didn't seem to have any shoes, but I don't really remember his feet. Arms were hanging around just like beside him. They They was crowd down to the side of him. He had a kind of hat that reminded me of a Mexican hat. Remind me, little round hat that looked like it was built onto him. He didn't have on any clothes. Eventually looked like a rubber suit, including the hat. He just stood there. I guess he was just scared to death right after we got there. The dogs jumped him. Apparently the dogs ravaged the little creature, tearing it apart, though the creature, of course, the body was become lost. And as often the case of these accounts, in their earlier report, 1919 was told by a witness named Harry Henderson, who claimed that one night when he was 13 years old, seeing a possession around 20 men, 20 of these little guys, 20 tiny men, 20 little guys, marching along in the moonlight. The strange little people were described as having pale white skin, wearing leather knee pants, wearing leather knee pants, and and suspenders. The little humanoids were walking along in a single file line, allegedly chatting with each other in some unintelligible language. Although Harry was terrified, the creatures marched right on by him and didn't even seem to notice that he was there at all. Starting from 1952, when he was just a child, the household of Dan of Country, Kansas. Dan, right here and stuff like that, would be haunted by a gnome for years. The family had moved to a 2-story home on the rural farm property, Liberty, Missouri, complete with a barn from a very young age, book to board. The guy, Dan here, claims he frequently saw a small humanoid around 3 feet tall and fully decked out in German lederhosen, smoking a pipe, lurking about their house. Often appearing in his room at night, the creature would often stand there looking at him before smiling or winking and disappearing through the closet. Dan here also said that he would often look outside the window at night to see little people congregating around the barn. We once drew a picture of the once he'd seen up close, and it was so frightening to his little brother that he would cry whenever he saw it. Would say of his first encounter with the creature. The first encounter, huh? I had just awakened from a nap and was rubbing my eyes and saw what you would call a troll. I'll call him a troll because that's what he reminded me of. It was an old man, long beard, large nose, 3 feet tall, standing at the edge of my bed, and I was astounded. There was another case, early 60s, from a witness known as Jerry, who claimed that he saw a gnome or troll at his home in Orange. Jerry claimed that one day he had gone outside the backyard and seen a small gnome-like man with a long beard standing by the steps leading up to the porch. According to the witness, the little man had funny clothes on and a pointed hat and all. Years later, this strange creature would make another appearance in the home with Jerry's 5-year-old nephew, woke from a nap, crying to run downstairs, and claimed that he had been woken by a small man with a flowing white beard who had been staring at him as he slept. America is not the only place such encounters have been allegedly occurred. One place the scene has been plagued by gnomes as recent years, the country of, in South America, where they are called dundes. Heavy presence in the folklore of the region. 8. The town of I'm going to skip some of these words. I can't really say them out loud. In the province of Salta, Argentina, in South America, was stalked by a strange miniature humanoid that allegedly wore a tall pointed hat and moved around the odd sideways gait. Many of the locals reported seeing the thing lurking around at night and in the early morning hours, to the point that the residents were in rather a state of panic. And indeed, the police chief of the town, police commissioner Jose, claimed that he himself had seen a creature when he was a child. Out of all the reports, perhaps the most dramatic was that of a man claimed to have captured the being on film. A young man named Jose reported to the newspaper that he and his friends had encountered the little beast one night while chattering about a fishing trip they had just been on. The video shows the man standing around talking for I say of a strange pointed capped human moved across the street in a sideways manner. The scene devolves into cries of panic and terror. You can see the footage here. Yeah, I've seen that footage. It doesn't look too bad. We were chattering away about last fishing trip. It was 1 a.m. I began to film a bit with a mobile phone, and while the others were chatting and joking, suddenly we heard a weird noise, as if something was throwing stones. We looked to the side, and that the grass was moving. To begin with, we thought it was a dog, but then when we saw this gnome-like figure begin to emerge, we were really afraid. This is no joke. We were still afraid to go out, just like everyone else in the neighborhood. Now, one of my friends was so scared after seeing the thing that we had to take him to the hospital. Yeah. Another town in South America by the name of Santiago experienced a series of rather violent incidences involving a tiny imp-like creature described as having large pointed ears and wearing an oversized hat. Witnesses said that this was often seen to move an awkward sideways gait, very much like the creature described from the other place. The gnome was reported by numerous citizens to stalk people at night, and in the pre-dawn hours, at each rush to savagely punch them, knock them off their bikes, and chase them down the streets, to the point that the police were issuing warnings for people to not wander alone at night. Indeed, there was even several signs of the bizarre entity made by startled police officers, as well as the priest, Father Juan at the San Marco Archangel Church believed that the creature should be a product of magic and suggested that an exorcism might solve the problem. Interesting. How much more of this do we have left? Because I might want to cover some other stuff before we do anything else. All right. There's another. These are wild stories. Make you wonder if these signs are legit, or if people, are just seeing things, making them, yeah. You basically are saying they're just seeing things. Could be. It could very well be real as well. I might finish this article because it's a bit longer, because I want to check out a bit of another article before I do anything else. Mysterious fairy circles. Fairy tales help robots learn not to commit murder. Fairy tales help robots not to learn to commit murder. Yeah, I guess that could work as well. A skeptic search of the real history of the fairy research. There, yeah. I'm just going to take a quick look at that. I can finish the other article at some other time. A skeptic search in the real history of fairy research. To hear one say that they are a believer in fairies is about as common today for someone to admit they sacrificed cattle to an ancient god of sex and prosperity. It isn't entirely possible, I would say, just uncommon. But as recently as the last few decades, traditional beliefs about the gentle folk, as they are often called, Irish folklore, persisted in 1864, featured a report in concerns about locals and country down Ireland about the removal of a thorn tree that had blocked a road that was about being forged across the land between Dun and Patrick. As civil engineers were dispatched to take down the tree, the residents of the nearby township reacted unfavorably, believing the tree to be the little home of fairies, just one of many ancient beliefs that have held fast among the Irish myths and traditions. There's that as well. More recently, Peter Coulter made skeptic, again by the BBC, to learn about the resistance of cultural beliefs in fairies and the bad luck that is associated with tampering with their sacred homes, the fairy of thorns. Coulter described as having heard from many people whose beliefs and highlights are very similar superstitions even today. One listener got in touch with the BBC Radio Ulster's Good Morning Ulster program to let us know that about a fairy thorn that was growing at Urban Golf Club. Dennis McKnight, who's the secretary of the club, said it was been there longer than anyone can remember. The club was opened in 1893, so it's at least 122 years old and goes right back. He said that none of our greenkeepers will touch it or cut it down. They won't even trim it. Belief in fairies around the campfires is not only the only form of seriousness. All this subject has been forwarded in the last few decades, as indicated by the newly published book about, well, if we're going to be talking about UFOs, I think, as well as other supernatural creatures, based on a fairly older manuscript. Major Johnson, Major here, saying, or it's going to talk about ancient fairy myths and stuff. But a lot of these, as I'm trying to say here, a lot of these ancient stories about fairies can go with UFOs, or rather, maybe UFOs are fairies. ultra-terrestrials, creatures that reside on Earth but are not part of the human race. Creatures with superhuman abilities, or at least maybe technology that makes them appear magical. And things that I wouldn't have no doubt would oppose extraterrestrial creatures if they tried to take over Earth. But then again, these aren't humans either, so who knows what their real motivations would be. Well, I can say that they might not like aliens interfering with us. I can say that much. As you can see, we're talking about this new book here. I'm just giving you an idea of, after some of the other articles I read tonight, what we were probably going to be delving with. Chris, do you believe in aliens, ETs, etc.? Yes, I believe in all of it. I believe in fairies, aliens, and all that stuff, ultra-terrestrials, ghosts, fairies, and stuff like that. I believe in all of it. But the thing is, how real this stuff is real, but what exactly is real among them? Are gnomes aliens? Are gnomes actual creatures from Earth that are basically different from humans? Do these creatures know each other? I believe in all of it. But what is actually real is what can you actually say about this? We don't know anything really. But it does look like that a lot of these creatures could very well be real. I just can't see an advanced species being at all interested in Earth, humanity's stupidity. That's the thing why they would be interested in us. Because they might see us as someone to help. They might see us because they keep mentioning about nuclear war. They might want to make sure we don't nuke ourselves. If they're good and stuff like that, and they want to make sure we survive as a species as well as the planet, they might come down here and basically advance us, because if they don't, they could see that we're just going to destroy ourselves. Look at it this way. We could end up with the same thing with fairies. Because if ETs are actually fairies, they might just come out of the night and basically come to us, basically say, you're going to destroy yourselves. We'll help you and advance your race. We'll teach you all this stuff so that you can basically not destroy yourself, so you don't destroy the planet because we live here. That's what they could do as well, folks. But I think in my live stream, we looked at this. I just wanted to read a bit more about the fairy research here and stuff like that. I think I ended it basically right here. I could go a bit further, but I've said my piece. And I think we've got pretty much where we are. I don't know if things have changed since. It seems like most of the reports of alien sightings are mostly in the U.S., but some in the UK. Same goes for the crop circles. Not exactly. You've only been hearing about stuff in the U.S. because you live in the U.S. There's been stuff going down all over the world. People have seen these creatures all over the world, and it keeps increasing by the day. So what are these creatures? Are they good? Are they bad? Well, I would say that's basically like on Earth. There are good aliens and there are bad aliens, like there are good and bad people. Good and bad aliens maybe good and bad other creatures, not just aliens, possibly ultra-terrestrials, fairies, or ghosts exists. And that, they can interact with us. Okay. Yeah. You have to look a bit more deeper into it, and you'll find all these other reports all over the world and stuff. You've just been probably hearing reports from just maybe America and stuff. Because, we're seeing these things as well, and it's definitely increasing. But as I said, I'm going to end my live stream, I think. Been going this for a bit longer. Any thoughts on the chance robot species having crash landed in the dark side of the moon? Apollo 11 mission being a cover-up for the period of time communications where, you mean that Apollo 11 basically checked out that stuff? Well, they say a lot of different species go and live on the dark side of the moon. All these alien species, all these fairy creatures as well, that they're all up there on the dark side of the moon. And that, yes, the Apollo mission was sent there to basically check them out. Could very well be. But either way, I'm going to end my live stream. I'm going to thank you all for joining me for tonight's live stream. Please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. Remember that there is misspelled. It's THERE. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that like button. As well as, it helps me fight the algorithm so more people can see my content. Hit that bell and hit the part of the bell that gives you all future notifications for my videos. Leave some comments down below, and also share this video on Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, take it easy. Yep, see you later. All right. As well as please go over and subscribe to Stitch Together Picks. Stitch Together Picks is a YouTube channel that deserves far more subscribers. It's hosted by the maniacal cinephile. This is a character that he plays on his channel. He has split personality disorder, and it's going to be fun to watch him. That's Stitch Together Picks. As well as go over and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is like the Art Bell radio show. He releases small videos talking about high strangeness, but he also does live streams every night. He live streams on weekdays at 12:30 a.m. and on weekends at 10 o'clock p.m. and 3 o'clock a.m. He talks about aliens and ghosts, and you learn so much about it. As well as go over and subscribe to Carl Vibes. Carl Vibes also does a show on paranormal activity, and you're going to love it as well. As well as go to Celebrity Dead, what was his name? I think, well, there's other channels you can subscribe to as well. Let's see. Please go over and subscribe to my Rumble channel. Just go to rumble.com, search out Comic Freak, and subscribe to me. As well as please go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel. It is also named Comic Freak. All right. I'm going to thank you all for joining me tonight. We had a great live stream. I'll be back again tomorrow around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, 8 or 11 for another live stream, so be sure to come back again then. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me.